Alex, bringing you a new episode of Gravity Blues, the podcast where myself and my co-host Ryan explore Earth and space-related concerns and interests. Last pod, we went in a pretty deep discussion on the Oscars, and I don't know. I think we talked about it for like at least like 40 minutes or so, and
Yeah.
that was last week. So that was the nominations, and next week later, the Oscars happen this weekend, so we'll definitely be talking a little bit about the results and kind of what we thought about either the results or some of the things that happen in between, acceptance speeches, all that fun stuff. But we also we have a special guest today with us as well, to kind of shed his insight on the Oscars, because he definitely has a little bit more experience with movies, than us two. I guess, do you want to introduce yourself, Seb?
Yeah, I'm Sebastian. Actually met Ren through playing futsal with him a couple years back, but I'm a senior at Ohio State right now. I do all the film reviews for Ohio State newspaper, which included making some Oscar predictions and traveling to Sundance. And then I also do some internships in the film area. I've interned for 4 different film production companies now, spanning producers of movies like, oh man, it's a lot. All the Hunger Games trilogy, the Batman, Gladiator 2, Top Gun Maverick, Black Swan, Shutter Island, Zodiac. Currently I'm interning for Sam Raimi's production company, Raimi Productions. So what I do for those is I read scripts for them. I send scripts up or down the line. I do some research related projects for their scripts that are under option right now, review them, compare them, and look for stuff to adapt. So yeah, I'm kind of more on the screenwriting literary side of things, and I do the film reviews kind of as a side thing. But yeah, I was very invested in the Oscars Sunday night as well.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, with writing those reviews, I know you say it's a side thing, but it still goes out to all the students and all of the alumni too, because I sometimes see in the Lantern, it says like, it'll have like film reviews on there in the emails I get. So you're sending that to hundreds of
Yeah.
thousands of people. Are you like, does that make you nervous, or is that cool? Like, what's kind of the experience there?
It doesn't really make me nervous because most of the time I just assume that no one's reading them,
Yeah.
and it's usually the ones that are I really like dunk or shit on movies where those will get the really popular ones. I think my most read ones were Madam Web, and then also I had more of a negative reaction to Poor Things. I think most people. I know that was one of like their highest trending articles for a while, but it doesn't really make me nervous. I have gotten a few strange emails from people that disagree with my opinions, which is kind of crazy for being just the Ohio State
Yeah.
University newspaper. But it's also cool. I've had, especially when I review more indie films, I get some people reach out to me through like LinkedIn and stuff that have worked on the film. So that's always cool too.
That's awesome.
So
Really cool.
it's a nice experience. Yeah.
That's super cool. I mean, I follow you on the letterbox, and I see sometimes you're funny. I follow a few people that put the funny things. I'm not as funny as you guys with the real reviews, but I like, you obviously do the full reviews, and then every once in a while, I think maybe it's like if it's a bad movie or something, I'll see like you put like a one line or something, and I'm like, dang, it's the hardcore right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I got to ask about for the reviews, and this probably, I guess, depends, based on the quality of the movie. Are most of those reviews based off one watch, or is it kind of vary? Like if something's really good, you might want to give it a few watches before you make up your mind on how you feel about it.
Yeah, so for the ones that go out to the Lantern, most of them are just after one watch. And usually I write them the night of the movie I see it too. I write them like directly after I'm coming out of the theater because we have to get them out, on a certain time frame. I periodically throughout the year though, I'll do like recaps of like my favorite movies of the year so far, or I do my own personal Oscar picks for who I think should win and stuff. So sometimes it does change over time for that. And then, on Letterboxd, I'm constantly rewatching things. But for the Lantern, it is pretty much night of, which has its advantages and disadvantages. But I still think it's a good experience to do it that way because it's like I kind of get to it before I even hear anyone else's opinions on it.
Right.
Unless I'm going through the movie,
Yeah.
I don't read other people's reviews before I write mine or anything. I hold off on reading like other papers until I write mine. So it is really like fresh in my mind, and it changes sometimes as I like think about it more. But I can't think of a movie that has really changed beyond like half a star from like the time that I thought about it.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll look back and think maybe I gave it a half star too high or too low, but there hasn't really been a case where I've like completely swung the other way.
I do have to catch myself doing that a little bit. Because like if I watch a movie, I'll have a reaction to it more strong than the second time. So I'm more likely to give something like 4 or 5 out of 5 or whatever. Like my first watch, and then I'll watch it again and be like, this is average, or you know what I mean. Like, or it'll balance out. If I really hated it the first time, I'm always like, this is better than I gave it before, But
Yeah.
it's tough when you're watching that first time to get it 100%. Are you watching all these in theater? What's kind of your situation there?
Yeah, all the ones I review are in the theater, more or less. Sometimes if it's a streaming movie, they'll be streaming, or sometimes you get like advanced links to them before they come to theaters and rare special cases. But yeah, on that too, I never give a movie 5 stars until I've watched it at least twice. So I have given a movie 5 stars in my review, but it's only because I saw it at Sundance and then saw it again on its broad release. So, but yeah, I don't give them. I've only given like I have like a list on my phone of all the movies I've ever seen on Google Docs, and it's somewhere around like 1,500. But I've only given like 14 5 stars. So
were there any were there any 5 stars from this past year or no?
Yeah, I gave The Outrun with Saoirse Ronan. I gave that 5 stars.
Nice.
And A Real Pain is at 4.5 right now, but I feel like if I rewatch it, that might get up there. We'll have to see. But I was really, really fond of that movie too.
I definitely liked it more the second time. I was noticing like more specific dialogue where I was like, oh, okay. I was picking up on certain things, and yeah, it's I didn't notice fully the first time just because you're trying to take it in, and it's big performances going on, so you're trying to take that in at the same time. But yeah, great movie. Uh, Before we jump into like talking full movie stuff, I just wanted to pause. We can talk real quick about Columbus sports stuff just for half a second. This last weekend, I got to go to the Jackets game. They played at the Shoe for the Stadium Series, and they ended up winning. It was a sick game. We were like fourth row, so we had very good seats. It was awesome. As I'm still bitter about them not giving the Jackets in Columbus the Winter Classic, which they should have. Supposedly, as there's an article that the Dispatch put out that the only reason Ohio State was even able to do this at all, like at the Shoe, is because they updated and renovated the Shoe to be able to do winter football games for the expanded playoff series. Or
For like Tennessee, for that Tennessee game.
When the playoffs expanded, you basically all the stadiums that want to be able to host need to be able to host in cold conditions. And so prior to this winter, the Ohio State Stadium, the water gets shut off earlier than like basically it wasn't able to handle freezes with the water running, and now it can. They've I think there was like $6 million they spent to renovate this. So
that's nothing for them. 6 million.
Yeah. I mean, come on, but
it's easy money for them.
I was like, nice, but also, give us the Winter Classic. We deserve it. We won the game against the Red Wings. People behind me. Oh, there were so many Red Wings at this game, which was ridiculous. But Red Wings fans, and behind me there was these people screaming, "Let's go Wings! Let's go there!" And I was, I was getting into it. Had them shout them down, and then we ended up beating them 5-3, which was a good game. But just wanted to shout out that because it's a big moment for Columbus. It's the second biggest NHL event ever. So,
Really?
so kind of cool.
Yeah, especially if you're going to have it in a college stadium, those fill like at least the shoe fills over 100,000. So I'm
So
not sure what the attendance numbers were. Yeah, I don't know if you
yeah,
know that off the top of your head.
I think it was like 87,000. So
That's pretty crazy still.
yeah, I mean, and the
Yeah.
Jackets usually play at Nationwide, which I think holds like 19, and on like if they're filled to the brim, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So pretty cool little thing there, and just wanted to shout that out as something that
Yeah.
we appreciate here in as a earthly concern.
Yeah, and I saw they did like the script Ohio to
Yeah.
I'm assuming that was before the game, so that was
No.
cool to see them like kind of keep that
Yeah.
tradition.
So the marching band, it was actually the athletic band came out before the game, and then they sat like next to the ice and played sometimes. That part actually wasn't or didn't really work because so there's like a goal song, that plays when the Jackets score. And they would try to go to the band to play it to have the band play it, but it took like a little too long for them to get going each time, and so everyone was
Hmm.
like, "Why are we sitting in silence?" And then there's like
Yeah.
five
Also, the
seconds.
acoustics in there is terrible. Like it's
No,
like you can only really hear it if they're facing
well
you and
they were
you're
on
like in the
speakers.
lower.
They're on the
Oh, they were on the
speakers,
speakers.
but
Okay. Okay.
it still just it didn't really work for me. It didn't really sound like exciting. Like it's awesome to hear the band play when they play like band songs, but just like the fast like da 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 where everyone's jumping up and it's just like it wasn't working. But that part was
Yeah.
whatever. They came out again during the second intermission. At 21 Pilots come out during the first intermission, local Columbus group, and which I'm not really that big a fan of, but they're like are full rappers. Did you know
Hmm.
like
Yeah, I've seen. I know like their big songs and I've seen clips. They also have like some crazy live like the live shows they do. Like they'll just put stuff on the I don't know like a screen in the background and it'll just be like they had like Subway Surfers like playing in the background of one of their songs live. It's like what's going
Uh,
on here? But
they were doing like fireworks and stuff for this. Is pretty classic. But they come out and the dude's like in a ski mask and like literally just classic, heavy drum and just doing rap and like doing this, like I was like, okay, like this is a rap.
laying it down.
I haven't heard that song that they did before. And then he
Mm.
did all the hits. Although so they're supposed to come out for the first intermission, which is a 20-minute time period, right? So it's already a short little performance. They don't come out until 12 minutes into the intermission, so they have 8-minute show, which is a little bit weird. And
Yeah.
they brought in like people from the stadium to come like stand on the. It was like a fake little mini crowd, where and the people
Yeah. You're
obviously.
talking fake halftime show kind of
Yeah, it
thing.
was
They're
very
trying to do
weird.
their own version of that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it didn't really work for me. I'm not a big fan of them, so I'll say,
Yeah.
but
I just want to stay in my seat, eat my food and try and
oh
stay warm.
well, it was 15 degrees when we left, so
Oh, okay. So it's a little bit warmer than that crew game you were at
pretty
last
similar.
week or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Sebastian, were you at that crew game too?
Yeah, I was at it. That was a lot of fun. That was the
Yeah.
worst parking it's ever been, though. So apparently, that was like the first time in history that the Blue Jackets and crew have been at the exact same
Oh
time.
yeah.
And so it was just like it took us like an hour to get out of just the parking
Damn.
garage, but it was a great. I mean, I wasn't like I was into like the Goosebumps theme, but like when they started bringing out like the drummers and they had that one guy
Yes.
who was like doing that monologue, and
It
I
went
just,
for a
like,
little
didn't
too
know when it was
long.
gonna end.
Yeah.
I didn't know when it was gonna end, and like I was like, man, it would have been so much cooler if like Frankie Hayduke had been the
Yeah.
guy doing it or something, because it's like I had no idea who that guy was. He just kind of seemed like some like theater kid. And
Yeah.
I was like, get someone related to the crew doing it, but no, that was a lot of fun, and it was encouraging to see us kind of like. I mean, I don't think our offense looks as good as it was despite the 4 goals. I think like we're still missing that threat. We're just like we're scoring because we're really, really clinical on the chances that we do get that are good. But like, it's very obvious to us, to me, that we need like a real target man up top, someone to like stretch it out and get space.
Yeah, I like that's the thing, right? Like I've seen people talk about Jason Russell Rowe coming in as like the Cucho replacement. It's like no, he's more traditional 9 than Cucho was to me. Like he's more Christian Ramirez, if anything. You know, like we need like there isn't anybody that's kind of that half space that Nancy wants, like Cucho used to do. I keep seeing though people suggesting that Gio Reyna might be coming to the Crew in the summer, which you don't want that. I think that'd work.
He's not a Crew. He's not a Crew kind of player. We don't. We've never been the big personality, off the field issues kind of guy. I mean,
that is fair.
We don't take those. We don't take those. Yeah, I feel like Nancy just wouldn't tolerate like anything that would come out if he'd want.
But would he fix that? Would he fix like Gio Reyna is only like 23, and so he could grow. If we know anything, Ty and Alex in. If we know anything about this ownership group with the Haslam's, they like they like these kind of big personalities.
They like these controversial players.
Well, Reyna's not quite as bad as some of the others.
That one. Yeah, that one's sunken ship. So, but I don't think it could get worse than the other ones. So.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I'll be at the Crew game this weekend too, when they face in the Dynamo, which I think will be their hardest game so far. They've won the first 2, so they're doing well. The Jackets are also in playoff contention. They're like getting their ass kicked right now to the Lightning. So who knows? But anyway, enough of the Columbus sports. We can move on. We won't talk about football this week because we don't want to torture Alex. More and more bad stuff coming out about the Browns, but we'll get to it. Let's jump.
What do you mean? It's all good, The number 2 pick.
Let's jump into Oscars. What'd you guys think of like the ceremony and overall? Like what good, bad?
Yeah, I didn't really have any like strong feelings towards it. I guess I thought it was just okay, honestly. But yeah. There was something, I guess, like not in the ceremony. Like there were a few things like during the, like I forget what it's called when they like honored some of like the people that like passed away. There were a few things like, some people I definitely was surprised not to see in there that they kind of like left out. But I don't know if we want to get into that, but I thought just the actual ceremony itself was fine.
Yeah, and then there was like a 3-minute James Bond, bit, which I love James Bond, but it was like a goodbye to Barbara Broccoli, the producer, and I was like, okay, are they gonna like? Is this partially an announcement of the next guy? I was really hoping that they would end that and be like, and your next James Bond will be. So and so, and excited, make that way. But it was just like a kind of a weird intermission with that.
I was kind of surprised too. We didn't see more of a like you said. I think it was like really quick for David Lynch, and I was I thought they'd show a little bit more for that.
Well, that's what I mean, right?
It was like so recent too.
The length of the memorial for James Bond with this producer was way longer than they showed like any of the actual people. And David Lynch, especially, that had passed. It's like maybe give a 3-minute David Lynch thing,
Yeah, that'd have been sick. But yeah, there's like Tony Todd too, and a few other people. I was like, this would have been throw them in there at least for just a few seconds. But maybe they went over their radar. So
yeah, no, I mean the Academy's never been particularly fond of David Lynch, even though they gave him that honorary Oscar in like 2019. I mean. Yeah, I was disappointed that it was only like shoved in for a few seconds. I mean, Laura Dern and Isabella Rossellini did him right with their tribute for him. I mean, I think Conan O'Brien did about as good of a job as you could do He wasn't really the center of attention. He led it pretty well. He had a couple good jokes, and the only awkward moment was that when he got on Color Sophia, I guess, on in her tweets. But that was kind of consequences of her own actions a bit there. So yeah, I mean, the biggest issue was just the speeches, man. I mean, that Emilia Perez songwriters when they
Oh my
accepted El
gosh.
Mal and they started just singing like Emilia, and then Adrian Brody broke the record for
No,
longest.
okay. I'm okay with him doing it. He's a second time winner. You should get longer if you're like you're winning your second one and etc. It did go on a little long, but you know
I
what?
think he wasn't really saying anything.
No,
He
but
was like,
that doesn't
he's
matter.
he was like, no, give me more time. I've done this before, and I'll make it brief. And then he just kind of like repeated what he'd already said.
His nerves
And
are all crazy.
yeah, especially because it was like the controversy was like, well, should he even be winning it if his voice was accented by AI and stuff? And he gets up there, and there was the whole controversy where he brought back the Hal Berry thing, and I don't know. That was like the moment I think of the whole night that was kind of off, but then it was kind of like forgotten about minutes later because Mikey Madison won, which just was like a huge upset because like Demi Moore had that kind of on lock. Mikey Madison would have been like the third favorite, even behind Fernando Torres. So that was definitely the biggest surprise night. I'm happy. I mean, Mikey Madison did a great job. I was rooting for Demi though, because like that was her moment, and like that was like her time to shine. She never gets awards, and I'm sad that she lost. But
I think of the nominated people, I would have wanted Mikey Madison to win just because for me that was the performance that stood out the most and was the most special. I don't know. It's like it's a tough conversation. I've Alex and I've talked about this. The person I thought gave the most memorable performance wasn't even nominated, and that was Lily Rose Depp in Nosferatu.
You liked her performance. I did not. I just didn't enjoy it.
Wow, I thought that was like I saw that and I left the theater and I was like, that is the best performance I've seen all year, like in anything. So
I thought her convulsions were good, but I think it wasn't entirely her fault. The dialogue in that movie wasn't like great. It was kind of like didn't quite land that old timey, old English kind of thing. I mean, Saoirse Ronan for me in the Outrun, she just wipes the floor. I mean, she won her first Oscar when she was 13. It shows. I mean, I think she's the best working actor or actress today under the age of like 40. And the Outrun, I mean, that was just a phenomenal performance. I can't believe she wasn't nominated, but just the range of depth that she had in that movie. I mean, we're talking outside of the nominees. I mean, that just cleared the floor for me. I mean, I think I all know what happened. I think that maybe they just didn't market the movie quite enough. I think it was more of an Irish and UK kind of thing. But I would definitely check that out if you haven't already.
Yeah. I guess was there a movie that you thought was nominated too much? If there was one you could have like subbed out for the Outrun, which one would you have done?
I mean, it's a big question to say Emilia Perez, which is not a wrong answer. I mean, I think, I mean, I can understand why that Outrun wasn't nominated. I did my like predictions for who I thought should win it all. I said Conclave. I think Conclave had more of that prestige. I would have been happy. Honestly, this year I thought most of them were pretty deserving, except for Emilia Perez. The Conclave, Brutalist, or Noir all kind of like took turns over the past few months being in the lead. I thought all three of those would have been pretty good options. I mean, the Brutalist came under a bit of controversy, for all that AI stuff, but that was still just like a great movie. I mean, the soundtrack for that was incredible. And the way that, I mean, I was vehemently against a 3.5 hour long movie with intermissions. I'm on the side of, make movies 90 minutes or under. I vastly prefer shorter movies, but that was just so well paced and is really contemporary and important. But Conclave, I mean, I think Conclave got a little snubbed. I think the whole thing about how they didn't vote for Ralph Fiennes because they thought he'd already won an Oscar, but yet they voted for Adrian Brody, who actually had won an Oscar.
Alex, did you see that?
Yeah, I did see that there were like a few voters that, yeah, they said they were gonna vote for him because he already
And there were
won
people
something.
that said they didn't even watch The Brutalist because they were like, it's too
Yeah,
long. Which, like,
and Doom too. Some people say they didn't
well,
even watch Doom
that
too.
is insane, right? It's
Yeah,
just a wild thing to say. I The thing is too, with the level that Ray Fiennes is, like, because I've said this to Alex in the pod before, but I think he's like such a widely unappreciated actor. He's done so much good work. He's in so much stuff that you would like, oh yeah, that movie, but you don't know that it's him always, or like you don't think of him as being that character because he always loses himself in the roles. You know, like I think of Grand Budapest Hotel, which he's fantastic in, and you don't even think about him when you think of that movie, you know, or at least I don't personally. And
Yeah, you think of the character, not
right,
himself, and I think that's most often you get these big Hollywood stars. A lot of times they're playing themselves in a lot of these movies, so it's easy to identify yourself with that person because
right.
that's who they are, or in a lot of the other ones. But yeah, if you have an actor like Ray Fiennes that is kind of able to, like you said, lose himself,
Do you guys think it's because
it's hard to recognize it.
he's not like sexy? You know, like is that what it is? Is
dude,
that
younger Ralph Fiennes was a good
well?
looking man.
I know, but you know what I mean. Like he doesn't have that kind of like really obvious like traditional charm to him. Like
He's humble, yeah, yeah. He
you
said
know,
that, like he said himself that like I don't really care about winning the award, and like if you say that, the Academy is probably not going to be
you
like
think?
sharing you in the awards.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, he doesn't. He's not like Timothy Chalamet is going to go up and say like I want this more than anything.
Well, and
Ralph Fiennes is kind of just
Timothy
like you
Chalamet
know,
was front row, and like immediately when I
yeah,
turned it on, I was like, "Oh, they got Timmy right up in front, like he's in the main shot every time they show the crowd." I was like,
Yeah, I saw him. I saw him a ton. I saw him a
"Yeah,
ton. He was probably. They should have done a Timothy counter of how many times
yeah."
he
That's
showed up
and I was thinking,
on
are they
camera.
telling us he's gonna win? You know, I was because it would have been a surprise, but are they the amount that he was on screen? I wonder if that was his doing or the Academy's, but. And
Hmm.
he has a little bit more going in the looks department than Ray Fiennes does. I feel.
Yeah. Well, he also did. He did a crazy press tour too.
Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
He's dressed like a stick of butter at the Oscar show now,
Well, it's
all yellow
better
jacket.
than his. What was it? The Golden Globes? He had the the bolo tie on. And I was like,
Oh
what are you doing?
yeah, hey, he's a known Columbus Crew fan now.
Yeah, you
Yes.
should have wore the Columbus Crew fit.
Yeah.
That would have been hard.
Although to be fair, he has just worn tons of soccer stuff, like
Yeah.
various
But in my
teams.
mind, he's a diehard
Yes,
Right.
Columbus.
and
Right.
yeah, he's only
Yeah,
this
so.
one, but yeah, wild. Other like any other like things that would surprise you? I didn't think Honora would win so much as it did. Sean Baker is great, but that was the record, right? He got it the 4
For
Oscars.
an individual for one singular movie, Walt Disney won 4, but it was for 4 different movies in the same year.
That's crazy.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean he
Honora,
was.
did Honora have five? Five total?
Honora had 5 total. Yeah, I mean it
Yeah.
was deserved. I think like Honora
Mhm.
wasn't my favorite movie of the year, but I think it was still a really good movie. It's really important just for independent cinema that a movie that's on 6 mil, which seems like a lot, but that's relatively like very small just for
Yeah,
an Oscar win movie. I mean, like I probably would have preferred Conclave over it, and I thought The Brutalist was maybe a bit of a better movie, but it's just like what Honora is going to do for just like giving people shots for, especially the fact that this is director, editor, and writer. I mean, just having that final cut privilege. I mean, that's huge
right.
for telling people that final cut privilege is what makes the movie, gives it that little magic, it gets that little oomph. Just going back to just like the real tour, I think that it's gonna do a lot for allowing people to have these kind of passion projects. So I was pretty pleased with that winning. The only other surprise I can really think of was Flow winning best animated
Mm.
feature. That wouldn't have been my pick. I thought the Wild Robot would win, but I was definitely pulling for the Wallace and Gromit. I think it was
Mm.
a little bit of a weaker year for animated movies. Just
Yeah.
in general, there was no real backbreaker like Across the Spider Verse
Right.
or any of those previous years. I can understand why Flow won. I mean, I didn't love the plot of it, but that was just like a really remarkable feat to do that. But I mean, Wallace and Gromit is timeless. I was pulling hard for them. But,
Yeah.
I haven't seen that Wallace and Gromit movie yet. Is it really like a? I've seen some of the originals. Yeah, I need to check it out. I guess the new one. But I do love. I watched the clip at the beginning where it's referencing uh the what's that movie I keep forgetting this uh the where Feathers McGraw is in the prison.
oh yeah, yeah, when he's doing the pull ups
Oh,
and all that.
Cape Fear. It's
Yeah,
directly Cape Fear. Yeah, and
yeah.
yeah. So I've seen that clip and I'm like, this looks like fun. But is it the whole thing is worth a watch? You think?
Yeah, I mean, it didn't quite have the little extra special sauce of the previous movies, but the other ones are so great that that's not like really saying that
Right.
it's not really good still. I mean, again, it was really short. It was only like 70 minutes, I think, which
Mm,
really ropes you in. I mean, the animation is just, fantastic, really good puns per usual. And I just think like the movie symbolized a lot with the fires that the studio had, rebounding back from that in
mm-hmm.
such like a remarkable way. And they they really didn't like. You look at the trailer for the new Shrek movie, and it looks just hideous. Like this looks like Wallace and Gromit, and it felt like Wallace and Gromit.
Right.
I think
Mm.
such a big gap in going to Netflix as opposed to over on the UK. I think it was just a pretty remarkable achievement.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, like I said, Flow, you can't deny. Just like again, kind of like with Anora, not my favorite movie, but the fact that somebody can just do that on a free software and it
Yeah.
can get them to win an Academy Award. I mean, I think the years off were just really big for like the individual and personal agency in film.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really good, important thing.
One thing I do like to think about. Look, Indy's getting in here in the video, but one thing I always like to think about with Oscars each year is like how do the winners from this year compare to last year's winners, right? So, especially with the actors, like Enora, which Mackie Madsen gave a great performance, but I like you compare that to I know you didn't like Poor Things last year. But I don't know. Like performance wise, does Mikey Madison do more than Emma Stone did last year? Like for me, I don't think so.
I
It,
didn't like Poor Things, but like Emma Stone was phenomenal in
yeah,
that movie. So like I can't really complain against it. I like even when I was doing my predictions and picks last year, it was like I don't want Poor Things to win anything, but Emma Stone will and should. I mean, that was. I don't know if you can compare the two. It's interesting that they're both sex workers,
yep.
and
That's what I
so
was
all that
thinking.
stuff. Yeah,
Mm.
all that stuff about like earlier, like I think it was like I don't know. It was one of the big trade newspapers, like Vanity Fair, Hollywood Reporter, released that whole article on like Hollywood and the Oscars are afraid of like sex, but like it really has like a very long history of doing this, and I think it's interesting how it's uh, 2 straight years lead actress has gone to someone in that role, and I wonder if that's going to be
Yeah,
like the next like biopic kind of role for women is
Mm.
if you can do a sex actress
and not
or
even not even like just they're doing sex workers roles. Like both of those movies feature those actors in a lot of nudity, like a lot of sex
yeah,
scenes, like a very intimate scenes. And I was like, this is interesting that we've had two movies in a row. And I think Emma Stone does a lot more outside of that, and Mikey Madison does too, but to not as to an as extreme extent as you watch Emma Stone. But I was like, dang, like this is interesting. And then similarly, the best actor role went to back, like very tortured artist kind of performances from uh, uh Robert Oppenheimer last year, you know, and it's like very similar roles. I feel, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think you see trends throughout time. I think, I mean, I was also not high on Oppenheimer. I really didn't enjoy
Mm,
Oppenheimer last year, so I think I'm in the minority there. I know people were talking to me and they were like, hey, like, how about this year's Oscars? Huh? I mean, they're so much lamer than last year's. It's like, well, I'm much looking forward to them because last year was like Oppenheimer was like minus 10,000 odds the whole season to win. It was like, okay,
yeah.
whatever. And I think what I would say is I think at Nora, barring any kind of personal controversy from many of the people starring or acting in it, we've never ruled that out in Oscars. I think Nora is a movie that will really stand the cultural test of time and be really influential and important in that way. I don't think Oppenheimer is going to quite stand the test of time. And I don't think Everything Everywhere All at Once is either. And I think, there's still people that are having, that are big fans of them. But I think that we're starting to see a little bit, with the benefit of hindsight, we're starting to realize that maybe there were better movies that came out that year. But I think it's going to be harder to argue that like there's a movie significantly better or more influential or more important than Nora. Even I feel like me personally, I like Conclave. It's like last year, it's like Iron Claw without a doubt should have won. Year before, I think it was the year before, it was After Sun. It was like, After Sun mops the floor with Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yeah, well, and that
Yeah,
year also had Banshees of Inisherin, which to
yeah,
I thought
yeah,
was
I like
oh
it.
my gosh, so good. And then I didn't really like everything ever all at once, so
Yeah,
I get that from what from your saying there, but um, I don't know. I feel like Oppenheimer is a big movie. I haven't seen it since I saw it in the theater. And I think
Mm.
that that is the problem with that type of movie, which is just like it's so big. It's meant to be huge, right? And you're meant to watch a giant screen. And it's like I feel almost like I am less interested in watching it like at home, you know? And so does that hurt it in the long run, or does that make it special in the way that it was made? I don't think we had something to that extent this year, but it is
I think we had Dune 2, but I think Dune
Dune
2
2.
suffered from people just thought it was less prestigious because it was a space odyssey and not a biopic. And I think that's problematic too, because in terms of actual source material, like
yeah.
if we're thinking of biopics as a source material and an adaptation of a life, Dune 2 was more faithful than, I mean, there were some changes, it was more faithful to the source material than Oppenheimer. I mean, my issue with Oppenheimer was like a lot of that stuff was just changed to fit a narrative. I mean, that meeting sign at the end never happened.
Yeah,
Jane
and
Tatlock was totally misrepresented. I mean, she was like pretty much a full-fledged lesbian in real life, but in the movie they tried to like force this like, tortured romance wannabe lovers.
mhm.
And I thought was a little too like mainstream. And my another big issue with Oppenheimer, I won't go on too long about this, talking about, but it was like it really felt like Marvelized. Like I've talked for a while about how biopics are kind of the new superhero movie because they follow like
Mhm.
the same pattern, but they feel like a little more sophisticated, where it's like the rise to power, um, you know, original material that people are familiar with before entering, so it feels a little more safer to adapt.
Yeah.
With that, it was like, there's like, I think it was, what was it? It was RFK, no, JFK, not RFK. JFK is like, they say he comes on screen and they're like, who's that senator? And it's like, that's John F. Kennedy. And it's
Oh
like,
yeah.
okay, is he like,
Yeah. The big
Samuel
surprise.
Jackson? Or yeah, it's like, I mean, again, that was like my gripe, and I just felt like Anora was a more sophisticated movie.
Well, and that's interesting to say because obviously we had actually three biopics this year that were like in the awards contention a little bit, and that was The Apprentice, a Better Man, and obviously the Bob Dylan movie. um, and for some reason, like of those three for me, and I guess Amelia Perez was also a biopic to an extent, but of those three you mentioned, uh, I liked The Apprentice a lot, but I know it's not a true biopic, and it didn't follow the same pattern as other two did, which did follow a very like rise to power and then fall, well, to an extent, but yeah, it is kind of interesting that those got a lot of attention, especially A Complete Unknown, because it didn't. It's not special in any way. to me.
The interesting thing about Complete Unknown is, well, I think the vocal performances are really special, but most of that movie is not real. Like most of that's not based in real life. Like the scene where he's in the studio and he interrupts
Hmm.
that replacement performance, that never happened. Bob Dylan actually met with James Mangold and told him that they could make the movie on the condition that they added in one completely fake scene that never happened, but they never told anyone what it is. So we still don't know what it is, and Pete Seeger never tried to like take an axe to the audio equipment at Newport. A lot of that movie was fictionalized, and honestly, I don't really mind that fact. I just
Hmm.
wonder about the ethical ramifications of kind of like presenting that as a biopic.
Well, and obviously it's weird because a lot of time we don't get biopics of people that are like still alive and active and doing
Yeah,
things to, well, and to an extent with Bob Dylan, like he's not super active anymore, but it
yeah.
is like weird to try to tell this story of somebody that uh, the story's not done, and especially like this. But I don't know. It was just like weird that gets that much of attention. Especially James Mangold isn't like he hasn't done anything and still hasn't done anything that I'm like this makes him, in that conversation of directors that I'm excited to see things from.
Logan, not a big Logan
I
guy.
I liked Logan and I thought it was really good, but it's like nothing that there's no like directing moment in that movie that I was like, this is what makes this special. Or at least that's the
Yeah, I mean
feeling.
that's fair enough. I guess it was more of a Hugh Jackman movie than a
Yeah.
James Mangold movie. Gotta plug my
I,
computer
I I
in,
do
but
think he's able to stay in a good pocket where he doesn't like push too far out of his
Yeah.
comfort zone, but he's still able to deliver uh, a good movie. But yeah, I think out of the at least the Timothy Chalamet movies, I definitely wanted to see more of a push for Dune over A Complete Unknown, but I understand why A Complete Unknown kind of, got more, at least towards the, Oscar season got more, kind of talk. Um, but yeah, I didn't really, oh, I would have been very surprised if, Timothy kind of walked away with,
Did
with an award,
did
but
Dune Part 2 come out like last January? Like it feels
it was
so
like
it
in the
was
long
spring.
ago.
I
March.
think it was in March.
It
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
March
Like a year
first, but
ago.
it was a delay from November of the previous year,
Yeah.
which I think might have hurt its chances because otherwise it would have
Yeah.
been competing with Oppenheimer, where I
Mm.
mean, beginning of March releases the February to early March season is kind of a dead zone normally
Right.
for that reason. Yeah, I think it probably hurt its chances. I think if it had come out in November of this year, it would have had a lot bigger chances of winning more awards. But I think the Academy just doesn't favor space operas really that much. I
Mm.
mean, yeah, if they're those really like high science fiction kind of movies.
Yeah, it
Even
is
though the
frustrating.
first Dune won a bunch, but
I mean, yeah,
not Best Picture.
Dune though it's so good, both of those movies, and obviously we're gonna get a third one. But it's like it feels to me like the equivalent that we kind of have of like the Lord of the Rings trilogy, that which won tons of Oscars, right? It was a very award winning. I think this is the second one that is the most award winning movie of all time. Uh,
Tied for a three,
right.
or first tied with three for first. It was Ben-Hur and Titanic as well, I
So
think.
but still like a huge
Yeah,
deal, right? And
yeah.
it's similar. It is interesting, like how that was able to do that. And yes, it's a fantasy genre, but and coming from like a literary perspective, like with books, the sci-fi fantasy is kind of one thing. A lot of the time, like we kind of it's very associated together. So it's weird that fantasy is able to do that. And yes, it was 25 years ago, but still, like it is kind of a weird thing, especially with you go watch Dune 2 and you're like, yeah, this is like this cinematography is great. The soundtrack is great. The acting is very good, right? And it's like, all right,
Hmm.
it's like nothing about this is less than it could be, right? So I don't know, just a little frustrating.
Right.
Yeah, I think the Academy just disrespects Denis Villeneuve in general. He's one of my favorite directors.
Yeah.
I mean, if you haven't watched Incendies, I mean, that's just an incredible movie of his, one of the best movies I've ever seen. And then Blade Runner 2049 completely shut out, even though the
Prisoners.
cinematography, the performances of that. Prisoners. I was thinking also Arrival. Amy Adams got completely snubbed for that. I mean, I just don't think he quite gets the respect that he deserves for being like. I mean, I would personally definitely put him above Christopher Nolan, but I think that hopefully his time is coming soon to get his hands on Best Picture.
Yeah, is it one of the situations where they just have to? He can't make he has got to finish up the Dune stuff and then go make something really weird again, and then people will go, oh,
Well, his next two projects after Dune Messiah, there's a Cleopatra biopic and then an adaptation of Rendezvous with Rama, which is a pretty high sci-fi. So I'm excited for both of those, and that Cleopatra biopic, depending on who the lead actress is in that, that could maybe put him over there.
That could be a big sweep for sure. That's awesome. It's cool. We're getting some classic, like some big name directors doing classic stories, like him doing Cleopatra, and then Nolan's obviously doing the Odyssey, which would be a weird thing, but it's fun. Anything else stand out to you guys? From the ceremony or from the awards that you guys want to mention? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm looking through the list right now. I think one thing I was happy to see Kieran Culkin win Best Supporting Actor. I thought that was awesome. I can't remember what our pick was. When we were doing that. I don't know. Was it Jeremy Strong?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was either between those two that I believe when we were discussing that. So it was cool to see him win his first, I believe.
Must be a Succession boy. Had to be.
Yeah.
But
had to be one of them.
And that's totally fair. That is a totally fair selection. Oh, was it Zoe Saldana won Best Supporting Actress? I was pretty surprised by that, to be honest.
She was a massive favorite throughout all the award seasons, but I was. That was a done deal, but I thought Isabella Rossellini deserved that. I mean, her nonverbal acting in that movie was insane. Like the presence that she had on screen when she did that curtsy. I mean, that's just like a whole different level. But of all the awards that Amelia Perez could have won, that was probably the one that I would have been least mad about. Because she was good in it.
No,
not my pick.
I understand, but all of the supporting actress nominees were good, and and yes, I struggled to watch that, like Amelia Perez, and it hurts my opinion of her performance, of course. But yeah, that's like really like. I don't know, and I understand that she's been winning the other awards before this, but this is the big one. It's like really, we're like locking that in, but some voters didn't even watch everything, so what does it really mean anymore?
I think Saldana was just like a done deal for this month. Like nothing could have changed their mind. I think that was just like the less controversial of the two options to just give Amelia Perez something. Yep. Again, as the bar so low, it's a tripping hazard there, but it's it's not. It was. I just felt like that was kind of a done deal, which I think is a shame. But the Oscars are really more based less on actual opinions of movies and just campaigning and marketing,
for sure,
lobbying, and I felt like that was just one that was just for whatever reason was just decided just months in advance.
Yeah, it's still still a little surprise. I understand it was locked in, but just in terms of what I saw and things, I was like, really?
Yeah, no, of course, I agree with you. I mean, I would have put any of the other four above her, but I also thought they all did it pretty good. Like that was my thing this year, is that with the exception of Amelia Perez in basically every other category, I thought most people deserved to be there for one. And I felt like it's so weird because if it wasn't for the massive crash fiasco of Amelia Perez, I would have been like, hey, the Oscars did a pretty good job this year, but they just, they just had to sneak that one in there with the 13.
Yeah, they can never go clean sheet. Yeah, it's always got to be something to get people talking.
Yeah.
Alex, what was the other one from the best picture category that we were like, this is doesn't make sense to us?
Oh, I could probably just
Oh,
look at
it was Wicked.
the Brutalist or the Brutalist. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
Wicked. Um,
We we
Amelia
we did the
Perez.
Brutalist, which is our
Yeah,
least favorite of the best pictures, excluding Wicked and Amelia Perez, just because it'd be unfair to include those. And what was your? Did we both pick The Substance?
I think so. There wasn't really one there that I felt like out of those two we mentioned that didn't deserve to be there. But I think out of everything else, oh, actually, I don't think I saw Nickel Boys, so I didn't comment on that one. But um, yeah, out of those other ones, yeah, I think that was our pick. But I still enjoyed that movie though, so I'm not gonna say it didn't
The Substance.
deserve to be there. Yeah, yeah, I'm definitely. I'm kind of biased because I always like those like kind of body horror kind of
Yeah.
they had that in there. So yeah, that definitely was something I enjoyed. But yeah, compared to everything else, I think we both pick the Brutalist to win. I think I know
Uh,
I did, but
yeah, I'm gonna have to tally up our predictions and see.
I know you were pretty high on Anora as well. So I know it was either one of those two.
Let's see what I had here. I have to scroll back in my. This is really good podcasting, when I look at my phone.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, actually, yeah, I had the Brutalist also. So, oh no, that's your
Yeah,
list.
the one I wanted to I wish was in there more was or not even like best picture, just the rest of the categories. I think I talked about it in the last pod. I wish Sing Sing was in there a little bit more. I think it
Mm,
was only nominated for one or two categories, and yeah, I wish I don't it didn't win anything either. But yeah, I wish I saw a little bit more representation for Sing Sing because that was one I caught. Earlier this year because I think it came back to like a few theaters or so, and I was like, oh, I'm mad I didn't catch this in 2024. But yeah, that was the only one I think like that I thought maybe could have like swapped with like either Wicked or Amelia Perez in some of those categories, but everything else seemed good.
mm. Yeah, I think overall, it was a pretty fairly accurate ceremony. I mean, obviously there was stuff that we've already addressed that we disagree with, but it sounds like for the most part we were pretty satisfied with it. I enjoyed the sandworm playing the instruments. I thought that was fun. Just
Mm-hmm.
just nonsense. I didn't need the whole Adam Sandler bit personally.
He was gonna play some hoops.
I mean,
He was getting ready to play some
look,
5v5
I
at the
like
art
Adam
back.
Sandler, but I was like, really, like this is I don't know. It just seemed like a long time for that joke to land. And so
I kind of like how he went from doing like uncut gems, like he did all these, like, or he's done a few serious movies, but then
he
most of them are
tried.
just like, yeah, he tried, and then he went to uncut gems, and it's just back to like the
Yeah,
old
like
stuff.
the
But yeah,
terrible murder mystery he does with Jennifer Aniston. I think they've done a
mm-hmm.
couple of them now that and they're so bad. They just
Well, he had that Netflix contract, I think, where he just like pumped out like 10 movies, and they were just not good.
yeah. It's yeah, it is wild. Well, he did that one basketball movie. Was that last year or 2 years ago? He did
Yeah,
the
that wasn't bad. That wasn't bad.
it
I
was like
thought that was
trying
like,
not to be classic
yeah,
Sandler, but
yeah. It's some heart in it. It wasn't that.
the
Had some players
old
I like though. So I was,
Russian dude
yeah.
or
Oh,
whatever.
what's his name? I forget what his name
Oh, is
is.
he a real player?
Yeah, well, he's I don't think he's like on a team, but like he was trying to be, I believe.
Hmm.
Yeah, I
Was
can't
it?
remember his name.
Did we talk about the we want to get into all this, but was it on this show that we were talking about the coach of the Lakers doing a podcast?
Oh, JJ Redick?
Yeah,
Was it JJ
I don't think
Redick?
we talked about this. So, do you know that
No.
he still actively does a podcast with his own players after games? That seems
Yeah, well
crazy.
he did so like him and LeBron did a podcast before he became the head coach.
Right.
And then and then they fired the Lakers head coach, and then he became the head coach of the Lakers. If you were like LeBron was just like recruiting him the whole time. Or
Well,
whatever.
and a friend of ours was telling me that he still does the podcast even as the active coach now, which is crazy.
Yeah, he is very like I don't follow the Lakers too much, but I know he is very like they're doing pretty good right now. But he's very he will if someone gives him criticism, he will bark back at him or something.
okay.
So he
Well,
doesn't like
it's a little weird.
yeah, it's kind of fun.
It's bizarre to me that he's doing a podcast, especially like it's very similar. And again, we'll move on quickly. Or just wanted to mention these weird podcast things. The guy that just got picked to be the deputy FBI director has like one of those crazy podcasts where he shouts and conspiracy theorists and including
So
one
like out of the boys or whatever.
yes, literally.
It's like I think that's like that's happened in the boys
No,
where they have
that
like a conspiracy
it is
theorist
literally
and
that, and
appoint him to a high position.
and like I watched. Oh, was it the last week tonight? Show, and they're like showing the clips where on his podcast he's like, the FBI is terrible. It should be canceled. We should destroy the FBI. It is unfixable. And yeah, they have like tons of clips of him saying, we cannot fix this. And then they zoom up forward and they go, he's now in charge of the FBI. It's like, what? But
that's exactly who you want to
yeah,
run
exactly.
things.
And he still does the podcast, which is phenomenal,
It'd be funny if he went back on the podcast and kept saying that, like, yeah, there's no fixing it,
Yeah, well, that would be
we're
funny.
doomed.
That would be funny.
Yeah.
Alrighty, boys. I think we've covered our Oscar talk. It's exciting.
Yeah.
Let's real briefly spend 5 minutes more on movie. Sebastian, what's the best stuff for this year coming out? And then anything that you've seen that we need to see already, or what are you excited about?
I mean, it's hard to tell. I mean, think about where we were at March last year when Dune 2 had just come out and asked people to predict the Oscars at the end of the year. I mean, you would have thought that Dune 2 would have been the runaway.
Well, you say that. I remember even like June of this last year and being like, this year for movies is ass, because there was there's like the Sony Marvel stuff that was coming out, which was really hard to watch. Like a lot of the big marketed stuff was really terrible this last year, which and yes, we have a few of the like actual Marvel stuff coming out, but there isn't as much of like big movies that are being marketed at us right now as I feel like there was last year.
Mm-hmm.
Although I did watch The Falcon or the new Captain America, that was pretty rough.
Yeah, that was not good. I mean, it's just too hard to predict. I mean, all the ones that we're already we already have in our minds are the big blockbusters. I mean, I'm thinking of Jurassic World, which I'm actually, I have Stockholm syndrome with the Jurassic World franchise. I just keep coming back, but this one does look kind of good. It looks well directed, and then of course Mickey 17 comes out in a couple days.
True.
Which
that's right.
Pretty excited for. So, and then Sinners by Ryan Coogler. For sure that might be over with the people at Proximity Media. I'm not entirely sure, but they do good stuff over at that production company.
Who's doing Mickey 17?
That's Bong Joon-ho.
I know.
I can't remember the production company that's doing it, but I'm excited for it because I think Bong Joon-ho is an excellent director, but I've actually never. I feel like he gets praised a lot for his social themes, and I've always felt like the social themes in his movies were like always a little heavy-handed. And I've heard the one that Mickey 17 is like a straightforward, just like action, have fun movie. and like the trailer looks good. You know, Robert Pattinson looks like he's having the most fun he's ever had. I mean, the whole press tour for that, where they're just like buddies.
Well,
It's just great. So I'm excited to see it.
yeah, ever since he did The Lighthouse, he just has been like, I'm gonna be weird in everything, and it's
Yeah,
awesome. And I love that.
and good for him, man. Because he,
Yeah.
for my whole childhood, he was known as Edward and
The Harry
Cedric
Potter or
Diggory.
whatever his name is.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
so, you know,
yeah.
now he's not. He's known as the cool guy that's Batman.
Well, yeah, he's
So
Batman too,
uh,
so
yeah, so you know,
That
I'm excited for that. Yeah.
yeah.
But
okay.
I
I
think
just
2025 will be a good year for movies overall. I know in 2024, among the industry, there was a saying that went around the whole kind of people, especially pre-production screenwriting, that was survive till 2025. And then it was because 2024 was just such a rough few quarters for film with coming off of that strike. I mean, the
Well,
irony is that the fires, like the whole thing caught on fire the first month of January. So
yeah.
I think, I don't know, it might stick around to 2026. I don't know what the rhyme is now, but I think 2025 and 2026 are going to get us back into some real good movies, real good releases, some real good stuff coming out. So I'm excited for the next couple of years.
That was the tough thing from the strike. I remember, oh, I forget what director it was, but they were saying that, you know, the amount of stuff that comes out was going to be the same. It was just going to be the quality that was worse. And it was like, yeah, we're going to still release the same amount of movies because contractually you have to release this, right? But it was like the amount of time we have to work on them and to rewrite this stuff is gone down a lot from because of the strikes. It's like that's a really interesting point, and hopefully that does explain at least partially some of the terrible junk that came out. I tried to watch as much as I could from 2024, and I was like, so much this is terrible. And you know, there was some absolute garbage that I didn't need to put myself through, but you know, that's life.
yeah. You
And
still
I
did
will
anyways.
say,
You're a trooper.
because I'm contractually obligated to, but I am actually looking forward to it. End of the month, Raimi Productions' latest movie, Locked, comes out with Bill Skarsgård, where he gets locked in this Tesla, and you know, there's like this evil guy that's like trying to like, it's kind of like Saw in a Tesla. So I would definitely check that
Interesting.
one out. I know they put a lot of real good hard work into that, and they're pretty excited about it. So keep that one on your radar too. Sure.
Dude, the Skarsgårds making a comeback.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, but no, that's pretty much it on my radar. But I'm excited. Once I think South by Southwest is coming up soon, and obviously Cannes, and
Mhm.
I think that's May, yeah, and then we'll be getting a better idea of how, you know, the year's gonna shake out. So
I really liked this last year, and yes, the Brutalist I think was A24, but it did seem to me like this was the year of Neon. Like Neon
Hmm.
had so much. Like every time I watched one of these like Oscar things, I was like, "Oh, this is another Neon movie. Oh, this is another one." And they had a bunch, and yet, and in the last few years, it has definitely felt like if movies like the indie, you know, Oscar name, it's been A24, and I was like, okay, cool that we're getting like other groups that are getting recognition at that same level and are producing, because A24 is making like 100 movies a year now. So at what
yeah,
point do they stop being the indie darling, right? Like,
uh, and Neon and A24 have beef too. They
oh
don't
yeah,
like each other. So
Oh, really?
it's kind of
Ooh.
fun to watch that rivalry come up. And I think it's going to get even hotter now because, you know, Neon came out on top this year, and they came out on top a couple years ago too. So with what movie did they win Best Picture for a few years ago? I cannot remember at the moment, but it has been kind of going back and forth over the past
yeah,
few years. So yeah,
well, hell yeah.
but,
Well, you know, thank you for hopping on the pod with us this
yeah,
week. Yeah. Anything else you want to like shout out or any kind of? I know you're finishing up obviously like school stuff right now, right? So, you got
yeah.
you don't know where you're gonna be after that, but anything else you want to share with people that they can find you like on LinkedIn or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not the hugest LinkedIn guy, but the Instagram is at PG9. And yeah, no, just thanks for having me on. It's great talking with you guys, talking about the Oscars and Columbus sports and stuff. I'm logging off of this, and I'm going to go watch the Crew against LAFC. So yeah,
are they playing tonight?
Yeah, and against LAFC in the Champions Cup.
Oh, it's a cup game. That's why.
Yeah,
nice.
Gotta watch them all though. So.
Yeah, I'm gonna go watch the Cavs. They're in like the third quarter right now.
In Chicago.
Continue the win. Yeah. Well, it was great last week beating all the Chicago teams, and then this past week we beat Detroit. Just keep beating up on these, whatever Midwest.
We are the superior Midwestern city.
Yes.
Chicago. Everyone knows Columbus is better than Chicago.
Yes. Well, at least our sports anyway, right?
Yeah.
In every way. But alrighty, guys. Thanks for hopping on. Our social stuff is out there. It's in the show notes. But thanks for listening, everybody. Cheers.
Cheers, everyone.
Guys. Bye-bye.